here's the scene. We're sitting in jail. The Sanhedrin said we were causing a ruckus. Jesus, who we've been following, has also been taken, being charged by the high priest. We're not sure what's going on outside these walls, but there's a turmoil between the government, between the leaders of this city. So we're going to do what we remember, what we know, songs that we sing to our God, our King.
Altogether worthy, And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priests accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you?" But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed.
Now at the feast, he used to release for them one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them. And he answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release for you the King of Jews?" For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priests had delivered him up. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man you call the King of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas. And having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified.
And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is the governor's headquarters. And they called together the whole battalion, and they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they were striking his head with a reed, and spitting on him, and kneeling down in homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak, and put his own clothes on him. And they led him out to crucify him. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. And it was the third hour when they crucified him. And the inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two robbers, one on his right and one on his left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him to one another, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those who were crucified with him also reviled him. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "Behold, he is calling Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of God." There were also women looking on from a distance, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James the younger, and Joseph and Salome. And he was in Galilee. They followed him and ministered to him. And there were also many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem.
And when evening had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath. Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that he should have already died. And summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he was already dead. And when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the corpse to Joseph. And Joseph bought a linen shroud, and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. And he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid.
Sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger. The King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You would lay down your life, that set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of his brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You would lay down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. This is amazing grace. can take it in. That on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shouts of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration and then proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
I spent about 3 years in that dungeon. Probably the worst part about it was the dampness and the cold air caused a constant dripping from the ceiling. You know, and there was no rhythm to it. And for 3 years, putting up with drip, 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 drip will drive somebody insane. And I was about there. You see, being a murderer, a thief, I knew the end that I had waiting for me. I wasn't ever going to see sunlight again. At least that's what I thought. And then the strangest thing happened. You see, when you're waiting in that dungeon, you know execution is coming, they don't give you a date. They don't give you a time. It just happens. One day the soldiers, they show up, they drag you out, and off with your head. I was part of an insurrection, a rebellion, an uprising against the government. I hated the government, especially the Romans. They had no part in the Jewish nation. What were they doing there? But if I go back to about 7, 8 years old, I guess that's when I saw a side of me start to emerge that eventually it controlled me. It started with just a little bit of stealing here, a little bit of stealing there. And before long, I'm caught in a squabble with a Roman soldier and I kill him. I take his sword and I kill him. One thing leads to another. I start becoming a violent man. We were out one day, me and two of my friends, and there was a money sack hanging on a horse. I didn't know it belonged to a Roman soldier. I didn't see anyone standing around that horse, so I went up there and I just grabbed the money sack. You know, the older you get and the more you become used to robbing people, the more bold you get. I grabbed it and I took off. Well, little did I know that the soldier was right there. And he shouted at me to stop, and I didn't. There's no way. Me and my buddies, we took off. And before long, it was about 20, 30 of them soldiers, man. They chased us down. They caught up with us. That's what ended me in jail. Me and my two friends, just common thieves. When you're in a dungeon like that, there's no sunlight. There's no way to tell morning from evening, afternoon from midnight. The only way you can really figure that out is by telling when the guards change shifts, and you get used to that after a while. It was early one morning, probably about 6 a.m. The guards were shifting around, and I could tell there was a commotion outside. The walls underneath the governor's palace, they were pretty thick, so for me to hear the crowd building meant there was something big going on. I didn't think too much of it. I knew it was Passover week, so I knew Jerusalem was filled with a lot of people. About an hour later, 3 soldiers dragged in a man. I was in my cell, and right across the hallway was an empty cell that they threw him in. We made quick eye contact before he threw him in there. And the way we were sitting in the cells, if we would lean over, we could see each other. But just by sitting there, all I could see was his feet on the ground. But I got a good look at him. And I could tell, man, someone punched him really hard. Just right there. His face was swelling up huge. I was already turning black and blue. The blood was running down from his eyebrow. Hey, when someone joins us down there, typically it's for a good reason. And so I hollered at him, "Hey man, what you in here for?" Nothing. Just silence. I'm an angry man at the heart of me, so I said, "Come on, man, why don't you speak? Tell me, what's going on? Why are you in here?" He kind of bent over and peeked over and looked at me. I looked at him. He didn't say anything, but he didn't have to. There was a confidence and a peace about this man that I knew I wasn't going to get an answer out of him. But it was that look in his eyes that really got me thinking. So I asked him again. I said, "What are you in here for?" Still no response. All right, fine. Be that way. So, sitting on the floor, I closed my eyes, not much else to do. I'm down there, and started to snooze. I think I just fell asleep when I heard, "Barabbas!" The crowd shouted my name. Man, woke me right up. It kind of felt good for a moment because, being part of the rebellion that wanted to get these Roman soldiers out, the government out, I felt like they knew me. I felt like I made a difference. Not a clue why they're shouting my name at this moment. 15, 20 seconds went by. Then I hear, "Crucify him." I don't know if you ever faced death head on. But in that moment, that split second where I heard those words, the crowd shouting, I faced death. Guys, I like to act tough on the outside, and I was scared to death, though. You see, I belonged in that prison. I belonged there. I knew it was coming. I knew the day was coming. But the surprise of it and the way that it was going to happen, crucifixion, out of all the ways to die, not crucifixion. I've seen guys up on the cross for 2 days straight until they died. As best as I could, I settled in my heart about the fact that I would not see tomorrow. I looked back over at that man. I said, did you hear what they just said? This is it. I'm done. I said, you don't want to say nothing. And all I could hear come from his mouth was, you'll be okay. What are you talking about? You'll be okay. Are you not listening? Was the blow to your head, that hard, that traumatic, that maybe your hearing's messed up? But he said it in a way that I believed him. Well, sure enough, 3 soldiers came down. I heard the large iron gate open. The squeal of that gate, you can't miss it. They come down the hallway. They come to my cell, and they open the gate. I wasn't going to go without a fight. I struggled, and I yelled, and I spit in their faces, and I did what I could to make sure they knew who I was. To make sure they knew that I was Barabbas, I was part of the insurrection, I was a murderer, and I was going out with a fight. They unshackled me. They drugged me out. The one man with the sword that led them, he was the one who actually arrested me 3 years earlier. But as they dragged me out of the cell, I caught one more glimpse of this man with the swollen face. He looked at me and he nodded. It wasn't like, "What's up, man?" kind of nod. It wasn't a disappointing type of nod. It was a, "You're gonna be okay" type of nod. Man, I know bad. I know rebellion. I know murderers. I know thieves. 2 of my buddies were in there with me. What I saw in that guy, I could not put together why he was down there. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't seem like he would harm a fly. Well, they dragged me out. I let my feet go limp. It's hard to carry dead weight. So I figured if I'm going to go out, they're going to drag me all the way to Golgotha. About 1/3 of the mile outside the city. They're going to drag me the entire way. They lead me out back, right outside, and they drop me. Just bam, hit the ground. Was not expecting that. And I kind of get up and what's going on? And the one man with the sword, he looks at me and says, "Get out of here." When you're absolutely certain you're gonna die, when you faced your death square on and you've embraced it, to hear someone say, "Get out of here," doesn't compute. You can't process that. I said, "What?" "Get out of here. I don't want to see your face again." I just heard him call my name. I just heard him say, "Crucify me." The soldier was getting pretty mad at this point. He kind of pulled his sword and kind of aimed it at me. He says, "I'm not going to tell you again. Get out of here. I don't want to see your face ever again." You got to tell me what's going on. I clearly was, man, I was not making this guy happy. He goes, that man in there took your spot. Now go. And they walked away. There was no way I was going to leave that city without getting answers. The man with the bruised head took my spot, and I could tell in his eyes there was nothing that he did wrong. I deserved crucifixion. Not that man. Not that man. So I walked around to the front, and I saw the crowd, thousands of people gathered around the front of the governor's palace, Pilate's headquarters. And they're all kind of shouting. Some are crying and mourning, and some are shouting. You know, and I could have sworn I saw the high priest in the mix. The religious guy, the one with the big hat and the flowy robes and the purple and all that, egging the crowd on. Crucify him. Now, it doesn't make sense. Pilate, I could tell he was doing everything he could to free the man. I overheard a couple people say he's the son of David. As a Jew, you know the son of David was the Messiah. He was the one that was to come from God. Now I'm really intrigued. Religious leaders are getting the crowd, crucify him, crucify him. Pilate's like, I don't see no wrong in this guy. In a last-ditch effort, Pilate had the guy flogged. He brings the man out with the bruised face, and he has him flogged. And I think he did that in hopes that it would appease their anger. It didn't. I started feeling really bad for the guy. They drug him back in. It's about the third hour. I seen my two buddies that were in there with me. The first one walked out with the cross on his back. I lost it. That should have been me. Those thieves, the second one came out with the cross on his back. Why was I the one to be set free? Why are they going to be crucified? They were thieves. I was a murderer. And then the man with the bruised head, the son of David, he walked out. Barely could stand. But I'm telling you, there was something about the way he walked that said he was on a mission. He was determined to get to Golgotha. He would fall down and he would get back up, and he would fall down and he would get back up. And there was a Roman soldier there who was just getting so mad. He wanted to get home or do something, because he grabbed some dude and said, "You're going to carry his cross." And even after he took the cross, Jesus stood right next to that dude and helped him. I watched as they walked outside the city. They climbed the hill to Golgotha, the place called the Skull, where the crucifixions happened. Just picturing myself. That should be me. I'm the one who deserved death, not that man. I'll tell you what happened next proved that this man was from God. The sky started to darken. The ground started to shake. Rocks started to split. It was like God himself was letting out his wrath on that man that took my place. The whole earth trembled like nothing before. I can't even begin to explain it. And I knew that something was happening between God and that man. I had had to know who he was. Because he took my spot. The worst of sinners, a thief, a murderer, part of the rebellion, a man who I could tell was innocent, had no problem carrying that cross for me. And I watched as they nailed him to it, right through the wrists, right through the feet. And they hung him. You could tell right away he was struggling breathing. They flogged him 39 times. And them crosses, guys, they're not smooth. They've got splinters that could be 12 inches long going into his back. I heard one of my buddies on the cross next to him, he was just ripping this man up. My other buddy turns to the guy and says, "Hey, no, this guy's innocent. We deserve this. He doesn't." That man on the cross told my friend that he would be in paradise that day. And then he did something, he said something that I think was meant for me. He said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." They don't know what they're doing. What kind of man forgives the very people that crucify him? What kind of love is that? I was determined to figure out who this man was. I saw a group of ladies. There was some people that were laughing and scorning this man, and there were some people crying and mourning. And there was one lady. She was kind of standing a little bit off to the side, but she was with a group of people. And you could tell the group that was with her really didn't know what to say. They didn't know, should they put their arms around her? Should they just weep with her or whatnot? I knew that woman knew who that man was. I had to get answers. Who is this man?
He is my son, Jesus.
Promise of the cross, you gave our God will stand unshakable. Unchanging one, you was and is to come. Your promise sure, you will not let go. There is hope in
God, there's a to be continued. And we will Sunday morning at 10:30. But for now, for tonight, we remember the sacrifice.